So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So, guys, before we start with the session, can you all please give me a quick information if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? Perfect. Thank you so much for the confirmation, everyone. So, my name is Neeraj Khedia, and I have been working in this IT industry for more than 13 years now. So, the main agenda for today's session, we are going to discuss on Azure AD Directory. Then we are going to discuss about Azure AD versus Windows AD, how they compare with each other. Then we are going to discuss on server audience on Azure AD editions. Then we are going to discuss about the Azure AD tenants. And then we are going to talk about Azure hands-on. So let's get started. So Azure, first of all, if you talk about the basics of cloud computing, then if you talk about cloud, so if we go back almost a decade, or we can say 15 years back, at that point of time, if we had a requirement of deployment of any solution, then we have to deploy that, then we had to purchase a complete stack of servers. We had to take care of its entire setup on our own infrastructure that we may have bought or we may have rented. Then we have to take care of the entire setup, operating system installations, its entire configuration, maintenance, scaling up and down the servers. That means everything from scratch to delivery, everything had to be managed from at our own end, right? And someone else, they have already done the entire infrastructure setup at their own end. And now they are allowing us to use their infrastructure by paying a small fee for the amount of resources that we are going to consume and for the time period we are going to consume those resources. And that exactly is what cloud computing is all about. So if someone gives us the access to use their infrastructure, and then that exactly is what we have defined as a part of cloud computing. So cloud computing is basically involves multiple things. I say it involves storing data applications on remote servers. Then it involves processing data applications from these servers and accessing data applications via internet from these given servers. And that exactly is what cloud computing is all about. And there are multiple service models also available. So basically, if we talk about the cloud computing, then there are multiple service models available. Like we have infrastructure as a service, then we have platform as a service, and then we have infrastructure as a service given to us. So if we talk about the main cloud computing vendors, then we have AWS, Azure, and GCP, and then there are multiple other small vendors available in the market for the same. So the global position is that we can say the first ranker is AWS, and it has been since its introduction back in 2006. So we know that AWS has been the global leader in terms of cloud computing market and having a market share of around 42%, then followed by Microsoft Azure having a market share of around 19%, and then we have GCP as in Google Cloud Products having its market share of around 11%. So, and again, we have other vendors like we have IBM, we have Oracle Cloud, we have VMware, DigitalOcean, we have Alibaba. So together, these small vendors, they make up around 21% of market share. And Azure has been popular in the market because of multiple reasons. First of all, it offers a more customized SLA for the companies, and that's why they have been preferring to use Azure over the other service vendors. And then Azure has some really good services offered. Let's say if you talk about the ML Studio. Now, ML Studio has been a really good tool offered by Microsoft Azure for testing and for creating and testing the algorithms as a part of our machine learning setup. And this tool has been really good, even better than all the other tools available in the market, even by AWS and GCP combined. And that's why again these all are different. And along with that, again the easier pricing method and more, we can say a better documentation for every resources. Again, these are some of the factors why Azure has been catching up the market for cloud computing in last couple of years. And Microsoft Azure is basically a set of cloud computing services to help our companies meet the business challenges. It has a freedom to build, manage, and deploy application on a massive global network. So if you talk about Azure, then it offers on-demand provisioning. That means we ask for what exactly we need and when you need and when to stop. That means here we can deploy, for example, initially we have deployed our application on 10 virtual instances. And now we want to increase those 10 virtual instances to suppose 15. Then we can do that easily without any hindrances. We can scale up, we can scale down the resources as per the requirement. We can launch any of the services as per the requirement. So there's no prerequisite, there's no waiting time. We can deploy the services as and when required. Then we have scalability. We can scale up and down the resources as and when required. Let's say we want to scale up the storage, we want to scale up the computation power, we want to scale up the number of servers that we want to use here. So we can easily scale up and scale down the resources as and when required. We have pay as you consume. That means we have to pay only for the amount of resources that we are going to consume in a given time. Nothing less, nothing more. And then here we have abstract resources. That means we can focus only on the resources needed and we can avoid getting any extra charges. Or we can say we don't have to focus on those things which are not meant to be focused from our side. We do have dedicated teams. We do have a complete full-fledged solution offered. So that we can focus entirely on meeting our business goals instead of meeting our we can say the taking care of the maintenance and deployment of these different solutions. We can easily do that. And then we have the efficiency of experts. That means here we can utilize the entire skill set. That means basically here we have a complete dedicated support team for us to make use of. And every unit of usage is going to be managed and we can say self-managed. That means we have services which are going to be completely managed. That means let's say when we want to deploy a serverless computing platform, then we can make use of Azure functions. And then we simply have to focus on writing the code and then get started. That's it. So these are some of the features offered by Azure platform as compared to other platforms available. Now, if we talk about Azure Active Directory, then we know that Active Directory is basically Microsoft's cloud-based identity and access management service, which help us in, we can say, in making sure that our employees sign in and access resources in a definite format. So it is basically Microsoft's multi-tenant cloud-based directory and identity management service that combines core directory services, application access management, and identity protection into a single solution. So we know that there are multiple services being offered, right? For computation, for databases, for NoSQL database, for storage, for ML, for the IoT components, and for access management, we have Active Directory. So it is a self-service model. Again, it offers a single sign-on service. And then here we can easily integrate that with the cloud platforms. So we can integrate the Microsoft Azure Active Directory with the on-premise, and then we can deploy it on the cloud. And this is also supported by not just by Azure, by other platforms as well. Because if you talk about AWS, and AWS also offers us an easy migration from the Active Directory to the entire access management given to us by AWS. So Azure AD offers a rich standard-based platform that enables developers to deliver access control to the applications based on centralized policy and rules. That is what we have Azure Active Directory as. So if you compare Windows AD versus Azure AD, then there are multiple pointers available here. So first of all, now in terms of Active Directory, we have multiple domain services available. Let's say we have ADS. So basically, if you talk about the ADDS, and it simply refers to Active Directory. First of all, we have domain services. So domain services are used to store centralized data and manage communication between users and domains, includes login authentication and search functionality. So that is what we mean by the ADDS. So AD stands for Active Directory, and then we have DS for domain services. Then we also have the lightweight directory services, like we have the LS. So it's so lightweight directory services, or we call as ADLS. It supports directory enabled applications to use the open, or we can say LDAP protocol. And then we have the ADFS. FS refers to Federation Services. So here we have Active Directory Federation Services, which provides a single sign-on to authenticate a user in multiple web applications in a single session. And then we have the ADCS. So CS refers to Certificate Services. So it helps us in creating, distributing, and managing the secure certificates. And then at last we have ADRMS. So basically RMS refers to Right Management Service. So it protects copyright information by preventing unauthorized use and distribution of digital content. That is what we mean by ADRMS. So these are the components available under Windows Active Directory. And then in Azure Active Directory, we have support for the VAD. VAD refers to Windows Azure Active Directory, which simply makes sure that we do have the entire support given to us in terms of easier integration, correct? So with Windows Azure Add, it allows us to extend the local infrastructure identity access management to cloud seamlessly so that it becomes easier for us to easily migrate the on-premise Active Directory to the cloud by using the Active Directory services available. And then we have, and again, it simply helps us in making sure that's okay. In the end, users, they don't have to worry about the way they can access organizations, resources, services, or where it's located based on it can be on-premise or it can be cloud as well. It can be based on cloud as well. All right. So let's move forward. Next, we have service audience. So next we have service audience. So basically here we have again the online customers, we have application developers, and then we have IT administrators. So basically here we have to make sure that we are keeping a check on the permissions given to every user that has been onboarded so that they have the access to perform the activities only meant for them. For example, let's say when we talk about application developers, we don't want the application developers to have, we can say, the same access as like a admin of the account, right? Because again, at the end, they should be having the limited access because that's how we are going to make sure that our account access remains secure. Same way when we have the online customers, now we don't want them to have a complete unauthorized access to any services, correct? Because that's how we have to make sure that their access remains in control. They don't have the unauthorized access to perform any activity as and when required. Is given to us by the Active Directory. Next, we have different Active Directory editions available. So here we have Azure Active Directory Basics. We have Directory Premium 1, and then we have Directory Premium 2. So basically, depending upon the service levels, depending upon the amount of access that we want to give, and plus depending upon how many users we have to onboard. So we have different type of directory editions available. So when we sign up for a free account on Azure, then we get the access to Azure Active Directory Basic, where we do have limited editions, where we have limited access given to go for limited services as and when required. So basically, in free, we get the access to only 500,000 object limit. We cannot go beyond that. All right. So here we have the entire table. So first of all, if we talk about the basic free edition, and here we get an object limit of 500,000 objects. Whereas in Active Directory and in Active Directory Premium, both there are no objects limit. There are no object limits defined. There is no limit defined for the current object.
There's no limit for the object defined here. Then in terms of, then here we have different restrictions available for based on the number of users. So basically in terms of single sign-on in free, we get the access to work on only 10 applications per user, not more than that. Same limit is also on basic as well, but for premium P1 and P2, there is no limit for premium editions. Same way, we do get a group-based access management provisioning. We do get the access to self-service password reset, application proxy, and the SLA is only in the basic edition, not in the free editions available. Whereas the access to premium features such as self-service group app management, which includes a self-service password reset, advanced usage reporting, multi-factor authentication, the cloud app discovery, automated password rollovers, connect health, conditional access based on user, application, location, device rules. Again, these are being offered under the premium Active Directory services as itself, not in the basic or the free edition. And even the privileged identity management is given only in P2, not even in the P1 as well. Same way for identity protection. And then also the components of the MDM auto enrollment and joining a device to Azure Active Directory desktop SSO is also given mostly for the P1 plan. So these are the three Active Directory editions available. So we have for single sign-on service, that's why we have 365 available here. Because again, in terms of the basic features, again, that is offered by under 365 applications as well. And that's why it has been listed as a part of the comparison table here. All right. Then we have Azure Active Directory tenants. So basically, tenant means an organization which simply signs up on the Active Directory services. And basically, it's a dedicated instance of Azure Active Directory service. And Microsoft ensures each of these tenants is isolated and separate as per the requirement. And then, since we have discussed on the concept for Active Directory now, we'll be seeing the hands-on on how it is structured by signing up on Azure platform first. So in case we are using this for the first time, here we can go to this link here which says azure.microsoft.com. And here we'll be having the option to create a free account in case we don't have the account yet. And we can use any of the payment methods. So when we sign up on Microsoft Azure for the first time, we get $200 of free credits added to our account. Now, when we say free credits, that means we can use this credit to against our billing for a period of 1 month. For a period of 1 month, so we can start using any of the services, and then we can use this credit for 300 for $200. That translates to almost 13,300 INR, and they are almost 25 services which are always free, and we can get started. So for working on the Azure Active Directory service, we can come back to the Azure portal. So from the resource section here, we can click on here. We can see the list of all the resources that we want to work on. So here we have the access to work on resource groups, on app services, on functions app, on SQL database, on load balancers, storage accounts. So we have a list of all the other services available that we can choose, and then we can get started. So to work on Active Directory, here we can click on create a resource. And here we can, if you're looking for one specific service, then we can simply choose that service by simply typing in the service name. And all the services related to that is going to be visible to us. So you can see here, we have searched for domain, and here Azure Add Domain Services has been currently listed down. So now we can open this up. So now to work with the Azure Add Domain Services, here we have to click on create. So first of all, we have to choose the subscription model that we want to go ahead with. And then we have to choose a resource group. Suppose resource group is basically used for making sure that we are placing all the resources in a group so that we can pick up any group, and then we can see which all services are listed in that particular resource group together. And then we can choose the DNS part. So here we can choose the DNS name. Now, And then we can choose the region, the SKU code, and the forest type that you want to use as a part of the requirement. So basically, in terms of the forest type, our user forest synchronizes cloud and on-premise users and groups to support the LDAP protocols. And a resource forest only syncs cloud users and groups to support legacy resources hosted in Azure from a trusted domain. So then we have to choose the networking component where we can choose the virtual network. So if case we already have deployed a complete isolated network, then we can do that. Or we can create a new network as part of the requirement. We can easily do that. And here we can define the network. Here we can choose in which subnet we want to deploy. For example, we had deployed multiple public and private subnets as a part of multi-tier architecture. So here we can choose a subnet in which this resource is going to be is going to be deployed in. And then next we can configure the administration part. That means here if we want to enable the DC administrators. So basically, let's say here we have to, we can choose to create a group to specify which users can manage the Azure AD domain services. So if you want to manage the group membership, then here we can click on manage group membership. And then this is going to take us to the entire management domain where we can keep on adding multiple members in case we haven't added yet. So we'll be adding that later on. So here we can choose to create the administration part yet. And then we can choose to specify the notifications. So these groups will be notified when we have an alert of warning or critical severity. So here we can choose all global administrators or the and the members of the ad group as a part of the administrator group where we can add multiple set of users as and when required. And here we can add additional email participants by specifying their email addresses. We can do that. And here, if you want to, once we add them, we can here we are going to add the users later on, so we can keep it to the default parameters for now. Then we can choose the synchronization option. So here, Azure Add Domain Services provides one-way synchronization from Azure Active Directory to the managed domain. Now, in addition, only certain attributes are synchronized down to the managed domain, along with the groups, group memberships, and passwords. So here we can choose the synchronization type available. So here we can now basically we have two types. We have the scoped synchronization and then we have full synchronization available. So scoped synchronization is a great option if we already have a large directory, but only a small group or a number of users who need to use Azure Add Domain Services using scoped organization, or we can say using this code option, we can select a few groups, and that's going to decrease the amount of time it's going to take for our managed domain to be up to date with the add directory. And once we have chosen the directory, then here we can click on next. We can simply review all the parameters that we have specified. So usually it takes a bit of time to validate all the components. And once it validates that each and every pointers, they are fine without any issues, then we will be able to create this up. So once it has been reviewed, we can simply click on create and this DNS support is going to be created. So usually it takes a bit of time for this entire service to be deployed. So we are going to get notified once the entire deployment is done. We may have to wait for a couple of minutes for this deployment to be done completely. And now once the deployment has been done, again, we can see each and every account is going to be created. We are speaking, that's why there's no sound. Mohammed is waiting for this one to be deployed. So as you can see, this Active Directory is going to be deployed as well. And to create a managed domain, we can click on create. And then we can define the entire managed domain. And again, once this has been deployed, we would be able to use it. And same way, if you want to work around with changing the password, for example, if you want to define the password access, right? So for cloud user accounts, users must change their passwords before they can use the Azure AD data services. So basically, password change process causes the password hashes for, and again, it simply allows for especially for the Kerberos, and the account isn't synchronized with Azure Ad services to Azure ADS until the password is changed. So either expire the passwords for all cloud users in the tenant who needs to use who need to use the Azure ADS, which forces a password change on next sign-in, or instruct cloud users to manually change their passwords, just like we can set the password policy in other accounts. Let's say we can use IMA back in AWS. So for doing that, we can make use of Azure Ad Access Panels. So for doing that, again, we can search for the services here. So here we can define the link by using myapps.microsoft.com. And we can see the overview for the current Active Directory that we have created. So here we have the Azure Ad Connect. So here we can see the sign-ons. Here to create a user, we can go to the user section. We can go for identity protection service as a part of the feature services that we can go for. But again, as we discussed here, identity feature protection and the privileged identity management, tenant restrictions, these are offered as a part of the advanced, okay, say premium plan available under Azure, not under the basic or free plan. If you want to create a new user, then here we can find the user creation option here. We can choose to create the groups and assign the roles to these different users accordingly. And then we can block the sign-in process. We can define the usage location. That means we want to restrict the user from any specific country, then we can define the location as well, along with specifying other details as in for job title, department, company name, and manager define. Same way here we can create a group as well. Here we can define the groups and then we can define specific roles that we want to assign for that group so that all the group members, they are going to have the access to only those specific permissions accordingly. Same way if you want to work on the Azure Ad Connect, suppose here we want to manage the on-premise resources, authentication, configurations, and on-premise infrastructure using the Azure Ad Hybrid services, then we can make use of Azure Ad Connect. And then this is going to simply give us the entire options from provisioning from Active Directory by using the Azure Ad Connect cloud provisioning. We can also make use of the user sign-in. The staged rollout for cloud authentication on-premise applications can be easily configured for remote access as well by using this Active Directory Connect. We have roles here, so just like we have policies there, we do have the concept of rules for granting the access. So if we go to the role section here, so again, just like we have discussed in AWS, so these all are the inbuilt roles available for different users. So for example, here we have users for the report reader. Here we have a role defined for search administrator. For search editor, we have a role defined for user administrator. So again, these all are the inbuilt rules that you want to work on. If you want to create a new custom role, then first of all, we do need to have the access to Azure Ad Premium P1 or P2, and then we can start creating a new custom role as and when required. So here we can open up any specific role here. We can assign it to any specific user or groups as and when required. And same way, if you want to work on the identity governance, then here we can move on to the same identity governance section where we can focus on the access reviews for especially for the SaaS-based applications, where we can also focus on role-based assignments. But again, as we discussed, these all are available under the premium subscription. Premium subscription as in the premium support subscription, especially for P1 and P2, as these are not even offered for the basic plan. That's how they are structured. Thank you so much for joining and have a great day ahead. Take care. Bye bye.